Hello friends, and welcome to this video where I will show you how to create these cute, small and easy Inktense illustrations that I will use as bookmarks, but of course you decide what you want to make with them. Just cute little art pieces for your winter season. And today I will be using my selection of 24 Inktense pencils for the winter season. If you are interested to see the details of how I have curated and which colors I have included in this set, I will have that video linked in the description. But basically this is the selection of 24 pencils that I find very useful for the winter months. And also these seasonal bookmarks or small Inktense illustrations are something that I make quarterly on this channel. I love books and I also really enjoy having the seasonal bookmarks to go along with my reading. So that's what we'll create today. I will have three small, very different looking wintry scenes, and we'll also be using a bit of Inktense block later in this video. But if you don't have Inktense pencils, don't worry, you can definitely follow along and create your own small illustrations with any water-soluble pencils you might have. So just enjoy the process and join me as I create these small illustrations. As always, my approach to using these pencils is that I always like to first create the first layer of color, so really just a colorful, good base for details, and that's what I'm doing here as well. So don't worry too much about the first layer, just add the colors, do some color blocking, and then you will get the chance to add details and more depth and interest to your pictures later. With Inktense pencils, it's very easy to go way too dark with your first layer, and that's also something that you can fix later. You can of course use white to kind of overrule that too much darkness that you might have created in your paper. But also one good tip is that you go very lightly with the pigment. As you can see, before I started to activate the pigment, there isn't actually too much pencil on the paper. That's also why these pencils seem to last forever, even though I really enjoy using them. But I love to use them on very kind of thin layers and layer them quite a lot. So that's kind of my approach to this, and that's also how I make sure that the first layers don't get overpoweringly dark. Also, don't worry if the colors mix together. That's kind of even the point in this first layer of color. I love to create different color mixes on a paper, and of course I want to keep the areas a bit separated so everything is not super muddy. But as you can see here, I'm mixing the colors together on a paper, and that way also creating that interest. For example, for the background forest, I have some kind of darker gray and green mixed together, and that way we can create this kind of beautiful dark forestry scene and have a bit of different green than we have in the foreground. So this is also one tip, that if you don't have too many of pencils or any kind of water-soluble medium, just get to know your medium and get to know how to mix them and mix different colors, and that way you can easily create more interest to your art. So this first little bookmark will have a kind of a Christmas tree vibes to it, and the second one will be of course about a bird, because you know I love to draw and paint birds on this channel, and third one will have some red berries, so that's very, I would say, even Christmas appropriate. The paper I'm using here is Fabriano's Artistical watercolor paper, and it is their cold pressed paper, and I think this works really well with Inktense pencils. It has a bit of texture to it, but not too much, so you can easily create some interest by utilizing that texture to your advantage, but it's not overly rough, so it wouldn't be able to kind of get a bit smoother finish as well. For this background, I am mixing together some light olive and dark mink, and they create a beautiful, kind of nice contrasting background. And I'm also adding some kind of grayish tones in it later. And I think the most interesting way to create backgrounds for this kind of pictures, where you want to have the clear details and then background would be more of this kind of blurry, hazy way, is, I think the best way to do this is that you just add a bit of different pigments here and there. So add a bit of pencil here and there, and then use lots of water to mix it together. And here you can see that I've also left some of the marks, pencil marks, visible, and I think that just creates a beautiful, interesting texture to the background. So there are different, of course, there are different ways to create these backgrounds, but this is just maybe my tip of the day for you, that experiment and see what you can create. And as you could see, I only used a little bit of pencil, and still I got this beautiful, very, very, I would say, rich background to this little picture. So definitely worth it to experiment and see what you can create with these pencils. By the way, next month marks 1 year anniversary for my YouTube channel, and I will make a different or separate video about that when the day comes. But I want to already at this stage thank every one of you who's been with me during this crazy journey in YouTube. It has been a year, I can tell you that, and with many emotions and many kind of, I would say, good moments and the more challenging moments. But I've truly enjoyed seeing how many of you get inspirations from my videos, and that's really what this channel is all about. I want to spread the inspiration and love of art. So thank you so much for every one of you who's been with me. And if you are a newer subscriber to my channel, thank you so much for joining the little community. It means the world. As you can see, and as mentioned, the first layer that we are building here is just the kind of initial background to the details. And very often when I work with Inktense, I think the same with Neocolor tools really, or any water-soluble pencils or crayons, the thing is that very often the first layer looks super messy and very uninspiring to me, at least. And I often feel that I'm not sure where I'm going with this piece of art. But as I think I said before in my channel, if you're not happy with your artwork, just keep working. And especially when you are working on layers, there are those ugly layers which don't look exactly as you wish them to, but when you keep working and adding layers and details, it gets better. And I promise you that, so don't give up, just keep working on your art. Before adding the next layer of pencil, make sure that your paper is completely dry, or if you want to have that kind of dry on wet effect that is very powerful with these pencils, and you could actually see me use some of that on those green leaves. But if you want to have that, then of course it's totally fine to also have a bit of damp or wet paper. But if you want to give a kind of more smoother second layer, then it's definitely worth it to wait and kind of give your paper time to completely dry before starting to add next layer of color here. For the next layer, I will also now start adding a bit more depth and darker tones, because at this stage I have all the details and color blockings because at this stage I have the color blocking in place. So now is then the perfect time to start adding a bit more shadows and darker tones where they are needed. I think what I love most about creating these kinds of bookmark trios or small artwork trios is that I can work simultaneously on 3 different pieces that might have a bit of different themes or different colors to them, and it's just so much fun. And while the other ones are drying, I can work on the other ones, and that way we can kind of multitask if that's how you like to see it. Here you can see that I am definitely utilizing that wet paper and adding pencil straight to that, and this way we can get really intense color and intense darkness, which is just perfect for these kinds of details. As I've mentioned earlier on my channel, my journey with Inktense pencils has been a very interesting one. I loved them the first time I tried them. I think I immediately knew that these would be one of my favorite mediums, and that's why I also purchased a large set of them later on. But it hasn't been all smooth sailing for me. I have to say that there has been those times when I haven't been exactly sure how I want to use these pencils. I felt that their colors are not really all very useful for me, and I have struggled to find just the right amount of pigment that I want to add on a paper so it wouldn't be too overpowering and it would actually work for my art style. But I think these days I'm really happy with how I'm using these. I have found my own way of using these pencils, and that's always with different art supplies, that even though you might see someone here on YouTube to use some of them, it's always important to test them and find what your style is and how you want to use them, what techniques works for your art. So what might work for me might not work for you, and vice versa. So just, enjoy the process, get inspiration, and then, of course, there are good tips for different techniques and ideas how to use these, but the best way to learn is just to create your own art and see what works for you. To add some white details to these little pictures, I am actually using my white Inktense block, and you could also do this with white Inktense pencil or a white acrylic marker or gel pen, but I really enjoy using this white block. And how I do this is that I dip it very carefully to water, and that way it releases lots of pigment. But you have to be careful with this because it's also very delicate, so you don't want it to just crumble everywhere. And you can see that I'm actually adding it very lightly, and that way I can get this beautiful snowy effect. And here is also where the paper and the kind of texture, cold pressed texture of the paper plays to your advantage, and you can really play with that, and you can see that the texture shows when you add this pigment and paper. So this is one of my favorite techniques for adding this kind of frosty, wintry, snowy feeling to the Inktense art. So just adding these final details to picture and enjoying that face. I think this is always one of the best parts, when you start seeing everything to come together and you can add some final details. And that being said, I hope that you have enjoyed this video, and please let me know in the comments below if you have been creating some winter art lately, and also let me know if this video inspired you to perhaps create your own little bookmarks or creating cards or other small, tiny, beautiful, inspiring pieces of art. As the year approaches its end, and I think it has been, I'm sure everyone has had their own kind of challenges and joys during the year. It's always a really good idea to take some time and make some art. I think that's one of the best ways to also kind of, I would say, express the feelings of the year and this kind of start of the new year. And at least for me, that's a very important way of self-expression. So I encourage you to take some time during this holiday season to create some arts just for you and enjoy the process as you go. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon again in my next video. And I hope that you've enjoyed this one, and if you have, please give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. There will be new videos every week, sometimes or usually twice a week, sometimes only once a week like this week, but new videos coming your way soon. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon. Bye for now.